I would like to ask a question of Longa, because he's like, did you, what? Yeah, Longa, because I would love for him to talk about how you view racism in America versus racism in South Africa.
Wow, okay. So some of the dynamics are different between our two countries. In South Africa, black folks are the majority, and white folks are obviously the minority. So the challenges I think that black people face are somewhat similar in the nations, but also different. So where we're at as a nation is that we technically have our nation back, but we don't. And as a people who feel like, hey, this is, where we belong, but we don't have access to the nation. It's like having a house, but you're shut out of it. And so that's where kind of we are as, let's say, black people in South Africa. It's a sense of, hey, this is home, but this is not home. Everything was pretty much stripped away from us. Currently, like 80% of the wealth of the nation is in the hands of the 20%. And that's the reality we deal with. So within our nation, what hangs there is this like rage. This rage and this anger. It was a miracle that South Africa didn't go into civil war. That was the role of guys like Nelson Mandela. They said, hey, let's go into peace, let's forgive. But with that forgiveness, nothing changed. So for us, everyone, black people stayed in the same economic space, but there was that forgiveness that had to be done. And so there now hangs this, this rage within black folk, and particularly considering that black folk are in a position of power in terms of numbers. So there's a sense that at any moment now we can take this nation. And so there is this like undergirding rage in our people. And so that's kind of what we're dealing with here. And I guess we get to see what happens here. And I think when we view it from an American perspective, like the way that I view it is that black folk here are the minority. And so it's almost like a lesser position of power. So for us, we're the majority. So we have some sort of sense of, listen, we could take this, but it would mean forcefully. But on this side of the world, it's the other side. So it almost feels like it's almost like a double. It's compounded, if you will, if ever it could be said that way. So I think those are some of the things that some of the differences between the two worlds.
Very good. Give it, man. Thank you for sharing that. Malcolm. It's like this is the Darth Vader. But Malcolm, I would like for you to share. You've told me about this before around what you noticed about American racism to juxtapose against what Longa just shared.
In my old South Africa, we at least had this one advantage. We had legislated racism and we were the disdain of the world. And for the most part, even if you were ignorant or tried to be ignorant, you knew that there was a reality that racism was alive and well. In my new South Africa, this one, our South Africa, the first time I ever heard a white person say that they dealt with prejudice was 3 weeks ago, and it was my next door neighbor. And it was a beautiful discussion. She was in my home. I won't tell the story, but she said something. She said, because I deal with prejudice. And I said, Martha, I've not heard that in 24 years, because there's no racists in America, correct? It's exceedingly uncomfortable, and that nail needs to be hit into the side of the church so that they can be sensitized.